Israelis celebrating the return of hostages freed by Hamas on Monday. But now, the peace deal enters its second phase, and there are a few details around what happens next, what that looks like. CTV News' Heather Wright is joining us this morning with the latest from Jaffa, Israel. And Heather, it has been an emotional few days. What is the atmosphere like on the ground where you are?
Well, certainly emotional, but really a sigh of relief being breathed here in Israel. We were in Hostages Square where watching as those 20 living hostages were released yesterday, speaking with people just about what this means to this country. The fact that so many people have told us that they've been stuck on October 7th, 2023, unable to move past that. Everyone here knows someone has been impacted by the events of October 7th. So the fact that those 20 living hostages are home is a huge relief. There are still the remains of about 24 deceased hostages that have not come back. 4 remains were brought back to Israel yesterday, so still a lot of lingering questions here in Israel, but certainly relief as well.
Speaking of relief, aid trucks are now beginning to make their way into Gaza following months of a blockade. We're talking about food, medical supplies, fuel supplies. How is the situation unfolding over there? What does it look like? What are you hearing?
Well, we're hearing from the United Nations and from aid workers that we've been speaking with on the ground there that we know the aid and the need there is huge. We do know from the United Nations that trucks are going in, and they are saying that they're able to move around a lot more freely than they had been in the past. But it is still an extremely dire situation and a difficult situation, because think about it, the entire enclave basically has been destroyed after 2 years of war. We've been speaking with people working at hospitals who say they still don't have just basic medication, and that while now people are not coming in after the bombardment, they're coming in with health conditions that might be routine back in Canada, but here in Gaza they are life-threatening simply because they don't have the proper medicine. So that's what they're trying to address right now, is just that immediate need to get medicine, food, shelter, water, and then of course the more short or medium and long-term situation there, which is rebuilding. I was texting with a man in Gaza yesterday who said life is disastrous. He's trying to find a home. His home was bombed in Gaza City, and he says he just has nowhere to go.
Talking about that rebuilding efforts, part of this peace plan is that Hamas is in no way involved in the restructuring and rebuilding of Gaza. But there are reports this morning Hamas is trying to reinsert itself into parts of the region. What do we know about that?
Well, yeah, we're hearing from people on the ground, and as you mentioned, reports that they are trying to reassert themselves, going after, we're told, people who they suspect of collaborating with Israel or not supporting them as strongly as they want. And so there is a power vacuum in Gaza right now. Hamas is trying to reinsert itself. We're also hearing about other gangs that are trying to get involved. And so in the absence of, you know, a governing force there are going to be these kind of issues that are going to emerge over the coming days, weeks, and months. And that's sort of where critics or experts are pointing to the lack of information about this phase 2 of the ceasefire. You mentioned that phase 1 is now done with the release of the hostages and as well as the Palestinian prisoners and detainees. But the big question now is what comes next. Who is going to govern Gaza? Is Hamas, how is Hamas going to demilitarize? Where is the IDF going to withdraw to? And so these are all the big questions that are happening in the midst of this humanitarian crisis that continues to unfold. What we've been told is that even though the bombing has stopped, it hasn't really changed life on the ground in many other material ways for the people who are living there.
Yeah, the fighting has stopped, but the peace still needs to be attained. There's also big issues, Heather, involving who's going to govern Gaza, the question of Palestinian statehood. Those remain unresolved. What will that mean as we enter the second phase of the peace deal? Those are being worked out right now. So while people are trying to rebuild on the ground, as you've described, looking for homes, what's happening on the side of trying to move into this next phase?
Well, and that is the big question. I don't think anybody really has an answer to that. And even the peace summit that happened in Egypt yesterday was very light on details. You know, President Trump was here yesterday and then at that peace summit, essentially declaring peace in the Middle East. But people we've been talking to say it's simply not that easy. It's much more complicated. Mahmoud Abbas, he was at the peace summit in Egypt yesterday, perhaps an indication that the Palestinian Authority might have some role in a future governing strategy for Gaza. But the calls for the Palestinian state that we have heard from many countries, including Canada, in their recognition, they're not getting off the ground here as much. And so it remains to be seen who is going to govern Gaza. Those are the big questions, and there are few details at this point in terms of where things go from here.
CTV's Heather Wright, great to have you on the ground for us. Thanks for joining us this morning, Heather.
Thanks.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.